Hello and welcome back to the Outdoor Minimalist Podcast. I'm your host, Meg Carney, and I'm an outdoor and environmental writer and author of the book, Outdoor Minimalist, Waste Less Hiking, Camping, and Backpacking. The Outdoor Minimalist Podcast has the goal to give listeners actionable ways to waste less hiking, camping, backpacking, and more during every step of their process. Your impact outdoors starts long before you hit the trail and goes beyond leave no trace ethics. You'll learn how to identify sustainable outdoor brands, how to ask hard questions regarding sustainability, and begin to shift and evolve your mindset to integrate minimalism into all of your outdoor pursuits. In episode 96 of the Outdoor Minimalist Podcast, we are discussing how one company is making waves in the outdoor industry through new product innovations and pioneering a truly circular production model. Most of our discussion revolves around a new proprietary fabric, as well as upcoming product innovations from the VENMO equipment team. To explain how they've achieved all of this and more, I had the pleasure of hosting Theresa McKenney. Theresa is the Director of Sustainability at VENMO Equipment, an innovative gear brand based in Dover, New Hampshire. When she's not deep in a spreadsheet or out hiking the trail, Theresa enjoys playing piano and fiddle with the Boston Scottish Fiddle Orchestra. Thank you for joining me on the Outdoor Minimalist Podcast, Theresa. I am a huge fan of VENMO products, so I'm excited to get a little bit behind the scenes of how everything is developed and the sustainability side of things as well. But before we jump into talking about your business or the business you work for, I would like to get to know you a little bit better. So how did you first become introduced or interested in outdoor recreation, and kind of how does it fit into your life today?
Sure. Super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. My name's Theresa McKenney, and I'm the Director of Sustainability at VENMO Equipment. More importantly, I'm an avid hiker. I love sort of more like slow sufferfest types of activities. I'm not a big adrenaline junkie personally. So I climbed all the 48 4,000 footer mountains in New Hampshire. I'm not sure where you're based, but out west, I know that 4,000 feet isn't that high, but I maintain that New Hampshire hiking is really gnarly. We don't have switchbacks and things. So just kind of straight up granite. And I also am a musician. So I grew up in the Boston Celtic music scene, and I play backup piano for some community orchestras in the area, the Boston Scottish Fiddle Orchestra. I play for dances and dance classes, and I really love it, sort of jam sessions. I have a recurring gig where I get $10 for playing 3 hours. So, it's not like a super lucrative side hustle, but I still love it. And I grew up outside of Boston, kind of came into the outdoors just from spending time out in the yard, honestly. I didn't really get into quote unquote recreation until I was in college at the University of New Hampshire. I was a Girl Scout, so I loved going to Girl Scout day camp as a kid. But when I started college, I really enjoyed spending time in the White Mountains. I was in the New Hampshire Outing Club, had a lot of friends in the outdoor education program at UNH, and just loved, getting up to shenanigans and spending time on trails and eating a lot of food before and after and having some beers. So I went to UNH for environmental conservation and sustainability as an undergrad. And I thought I wanted to get into more of the public policy side of things. So I interned at the National Park Service and New Hampshire State Parks Department. But I had a bit of a shift after I took a gen ed course my senior year around business and business sustainability, and found it really exciting. And I had always loved gear. So my dad had an Outside magazine subscription when I was a kid that I used to just love armchair adventuring and reading up on all the gear guides and gear reviews. So I had this big goal of doing corporate sustainability in the outdoor industry. And I got an MBA. It was a 1-year accelerated program, super hard, but a really great way to kind of get comfortable being uncomfortable and do a crash course in what business is. And I got my foot in the door at VENMO as my first job out of school. So I spent probably like 4 months just kind of, going to like fiddle camp and hiking and not working. I gave myself to like my I forget. Oh, the student loans kick in 6 months out, right? So I was like, all right, like we're gonna give ourselves a little buffer. And towards the end of that buffer, I started job searching and was super lucky to get in at Nemo when we were still really small. So there were about 13 of us at the time, and I was on the operations team. It was me and our COO. Now there's a 10 or 12 person ops team. There's over 50 of us in New Hampshire, and we're the #1 specialty camp brand in North America. Just wild. There's still really a small company feel here. But I came up through the operations side of the org, but was really vocal about wanting to do sustainability. Just took on more and more over time. And I today am doing sustainability full time at the brand. It's me and my counterpart, who's more on the product development and engineering side, and get to do a lot of cool projects.
That's amazing. What a great intro to working in the outdoor industry. That's so cool. I do want to backtrack a second, and I visited New Hampshire for the first time like in December, I think. And I did some of the hikes there, and I live in Washington State. And yeah, they're pretty hard. They're pretty gnarly. Yeah, it's just straight up.
They're not kind.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, we also have really horrendous weather. And there's actually a story I'll tell a little later about the origins of Nemo on one of those really bad weather nights. But a few months ago, we had the coldest recorded weather in the world was in New Hampshire. Yeah, there was a wicked bad cold snap it was like colder than, the Himalayas, colder than Antarctica. So I maintain that New Hampshire is like kind of intense, but people are okay, sure.
Until they go there, they don't know.
Yeah, no.
That's awesome. Yeah. So when it comes to Nemo, I guess you already mentioned that it is kind of like a specialty outdoor equipment company. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of explaining the types of gear you guys develop and manufacture, and then also what you do as the director of sustainability.
Sure. So we're a camping gear brand. So we do anything you need for a night outside. So tents, sleeping bags, sleeping pads, camp furniture are our primary categories. And we kind of got our start as a real ultralight backpacking brand, but over time we've diversified. And I would say our thing more than anything else is just innovation and also comfort. So I think, if we have to choose between shaving off a few ounces and losing a significant amount of comfort, we generally pick comfort as a brand. Not to say we don't do ultralight stuff, we absolutely do. But we don't think that you should sacrifice that experience just for the sake of weight, right? And for me, I'm the director of sustainability. So it is a pretty broad role. It's also new. I think a lot of my work is rooted in climate. So working on our target to cut our emissions intensity in half by 2030. Every year we go through a corporate footprint process where we look at and understand where our greenhouse gas emissions are and work on projects to reduce them. So to cut our emissions intensity in half, we'll be working on sourcing environmentally preferred materials that have lower footprints like recycled polyester, recycled nylon, increasing energy efficiency in our factories. So we do some programs with nonprofits like the Apparel Impact Institute, Clean by Design, which works with factories to improve their energy efficiency and use less energy. And then I get super stoked about renewable energy acceleration. So we're working on a project with REI and Burton to pool the energy usage of some of our factory partners in Vietnam and get solar installed that will be cheaper for our factories than their current electric grid and will decrease our emissions. So essentially my job is identifying what are goals and targets for the company and how do we get to those goals and targets. So it's a pretty wide array of projects that we're working on. Never boring, always important things. We're heading down to DC next week to participate in the Outdoor Industry Association Capital Summit, which is a lobby day on climate, equitable access, and public lands preservation. So love doing that sort of stuff. It's just like a lot of different hats and kind of like switching from things and trying to stay on task.
Yeah, it sounds like quite the undertaking and a lot of different learning experiences. It seems like a position that would kind of ever be evolving, just to kind of like stay up to date with the times and the way that the industry changes and new developments.
Yes. Yeah. You can never kind of like rest on your laurels. And something that I love within the outdoor industry is there's a lot of collaboration. So, like that REI Burton Nemo project, for example, all of us individually maybe aren't big enough in the grand scope of things to move the needle sometimes. But if we all collectively work on projects together, not only will it impact our piece of the pie, it's also an example to other industries as well that like, hey, we can like kind of put capitalism aside like a little bit here and kind of get things done. So I really like that collaborative work.
Yeah, I have always really appreciated that approach. With the industry as a whole, the outdoor industry as a whole seems to be like a pretty collaborative environment, like more focused on community and growth, which I think is cool. Um, yeah. So, what things do you think that Nemo as a brand, like maybe even when you guys first started, or have you, as you have grown and evolved over time, what do you think you're particularly well known for in the outdoor industry?
Yeah, I think, you know, innovation, I mentioned before, is kind of our bread and butter and our mission when Nemo was started. And also, I should back up. So, Nemo is a privately held, family owned company. So, our CEO and founder, Cam Brensinger, is still heavily involved in the day to day operations of the business. And Cam started Nemo when he was a college student at Rhode Island School of Design, and he was camping up in on Mount Washington, which is our highest mountain in New Hampshire. It's 6,200 something feet. Still not that high, I know. But again, on one of those nights where there was some pretty significant wind, and he was camping and he was having really bad night's sleep, and the tent was hitting him in the face all night, and he just felt like there had to be a better way. So he prototyped and designed our first tent that instead of tent poles had an innovative air beam support technology. It was basically like a sewn tube that when the tent was blown up, it was holding its shape a lot better in adverse weather conditions, and it was lighter than what was out there at the time. But Cam had a lot of trepidation when he started the company, from a sustainability perspective of asking, does the world need another product consumer goods company? And our mission is to create a lasting and iconic brand that inspires love for adventure, each other, and our planet. And to do that mission, you really need those healthy people and that healthy planet. And we kind of balance those two desires of creating that lasting and iconic brand and taking care of our planet, with a design philosophy of just never bringing anything to market that isn't significantly better than what's already out there that offers a new experience. So that's a design directive, that's a sustainability directive. 87% of our greenhouse gas emissions happen before the product even leaves the factory. So that means that we really need to ask ourselves, should we be making this thing? Does this thing deserve to be out in the world? So we really bring that culture of innovation from both a sustainability and a design perspective. And I think that's what Nemo is known for today in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you like a follow-up question to that, but I lost it all of a sudden.
It's
So
okay. It's Friday, right? No, it's Thursday.
It's Thursday, but it does feel like Friday. So I guess when we were talking about innovations and developing the products, and you like you were saying, like, does this product deserve to be here, or is it just going to be kind of like adding to the clutter of what already exists and what's already available? So, what is kind of the process that you guys go through as a company to develop and kind of choose the not only the products that you develop, but the materials that you use?
Yeah, so that first question is always, again, should this product exist? And if we as a team say, yes, this product should exist, it's usually because there's a problem that we want to solve. So an example, our sleeping bags, when we went into that new category, which was believe our first one after tents, We went after the problem of sleeping bags getting all tangled up around you when you flip over at night. So we have sleeping bags that are an innovative spoon shape, it's called. So it like kind of looks like a spoon, and there's stretch stitching around the hips and the knees. So when you're turning around at night, most people, sleep in a runner's position or on their side, or they move around. The bag kind of stretches with you. Another one was launching our Tensor sleeping pad. You probably see them out there. It's a yellow inflatable sleeping pad. And one of the problems that we solved in that development was just the noisiness of sleeping pads. A lot of sleeping pads have that sort of crinkly sun chip bag sound and that's not desirable when you're in a tent flipping over at night. So we really went after that as a primary problem, but also things like stability, comfort, obviously weight. So when we're choosing and developing products and materials, we're asking ourselves, why make this? What's the problem? How do we solve the problem? And sometimes that's innovating, using things that are already out there, just a different way of piecing things together. And other times it's completely starting from scratch and developing a new proprietary material or product.
Yeah, and then speaking about the material development, if you're creating a new one, I would love to talk about the Osmo fabric that I have seen with some of your tents, which it's OSMO for people that are listening, Osmo. So would you be able to break down the development process and why you thought it was necessary, I guess, to develop a new fabric for tents?
Yeah, so Osmo was a big one. It took more than 2 years to develop the Osmo tent fabric. And, a lot of tent fabrics are lightweight and strong, but they tend to absorb water and then they will stretch when they're wet. So to solve for that problem, we explored different combinations of things like yarn specification, weave structures, different coatings and finishes. And then we landed on a new proprietary base textile that we really felt was optimized for backpacking. So the Osmo maximizes performance, but it also reduces environmental impact along the way. But 2 years is a long time. And, I've watched a couple pretty intense development cycles. Osmo was one of them. And we also have a camp chair that I remember, I had just started at Nemo. This was 8 years ago. And there were just 200 little tiny paper chairs all over the office that little origami almost looking chairs. And it can be a pretty long haul to go from an origami paper chair or a bunch of scraps on a table to a new proprietary fabric. But it just takes a really strong product and quality and operations team on our side, but also really strong partnerships with our vendors who we're co-creating these materials with.
You mentioned with that fabric, one of the main things was kind of solving that stretch issue when it gets wet or there's moisture. But are there any other specific things that would set that fabric apart from other tent fabrics? And also, what would make it arguably more sustainable than just like a traditional blend of synthetics?
So during those 2 years of development of Osmo, which is the first poly nylon composite tent fabric. So that's polyester and nylon working together. We just discovered that combo could improve performance. So nylon is lightweight and strong, and then polyester is stable. It doesn't stretch and it doesn't absorb water. So by combining those in a composite tent fabric, it's harnessing the benefits of each of those material types. It starts more waterproof, it stays waterproof longer. And while we were going after that from a material type perspective, we were also thinking about sustainability. So the nylon and the polyester are both 100% recycled. And the way that the fabric is constructed and an additional coating meant that we didn't have to use durable water repellent chemistries like PFAS on the tent, and it also has no flame retardant chemicals on there. So in previous developments of tent fabrics in order to meet waterproofness requirements and flame retardancy requirements. There were additional treatments done there, and sometimes those treatments had chemicals that were undesirable. And by changing the construction method of this tent and thinking about both performance and sustainability from the start, we were able to create a fabric that's 100% recycled, PFAS free, flame retardant chemical free. And not only that, it also just delivers better performance. So it's 4 times better with water repellency, stretches 3 times less when it's wet, and it has an exceptional strength at a reduced weight. So it was really important for us not to just go after performance, just sustainability, but both.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I have been seeing a bit more of a trend in the industry to get away from PFAS and some of those more toxic chemicals. So that's really cool that you didn't even have to really include those types of things with that development. And I did test the Nemo Dragonfly Osmo for work for an article, and it was crazy light. Like the material was thinner than I expected. Yeah, so I'm excited to use it more. But anyway, you talked a little bit about the chair, which was an earlier kind of innovation, and then this new Osmo fabric. But are there any other product innovations that you guys either have currently released or have upcoming that you think are really going to start to shift the industry in a positive direction?
Yeah, in June, which is in the past when this podcast will run. So 4 weeks ago, right in the future, well, in June 2023, we'll be launching our first truly circular product line. And a couple of years ago, it was like peak pandemic, and we were doing a lot of big picture thinking about where we wanted to go as a brand. And we sat down and we asked ourselves what it would look like if we skipped past the sort of baby step, incremental steps of sustainability and started with the end product of where we wanted to go. And we all aligned that what we really wanted to do was to keep gear out of a landfill. So again, most of our impacts are happening when we make the product. We want to keep that product out in the world as much as possible. And then when it's truly at the end of its life, how can we turn it into a truly circular system? So we're launching our first recyclable product. It's called Forte Endless Promise. So Endless Promise is the name of the circularity line. And Forte is our best-selling synthetic sleeping bag. So it's one of those spoon bags. And we wanted to do this with a product that's not like a small pilot. This is like our #1 volume driver in the brand for sleeping bags. And we started at the design phase. And from the start, we were thinking about using more recycled materials, making the product as repairable as possible, having a resale plan for the product. And the crux of the project was to make it recyclable. So we swapped out as many virgin materials for recycled materials as we could. We were able to use 38% less fossil fuels in the making of the new version of the Forte bag. And we thought about repairability when we were designing it, maybe not as an often repaired product for sleeping bags versus a tent, right? But still thinking about that in our ethos. Resale, we have a pilot that we're doing with REI and Cotopaxi, where our customers are able to turn in their gently used gear for a Nemo gift card. And then that product gets a second, third life through reiused.com. So we have that sort of logistics infrastructure to get goods back into the circular economy and then eventually capture them again when it's at the final stage for them to be recycled. So the recyclability was the hardest part. Over 95% of the bag by weight is polyester. And we did that mono-material design to improve recyclability. And at first we were working with a really big recycling partner in the US, but they needed a 40,000 pound test run of the sleeping bag to make sure that they're recyclable. We're like, okay, we don't really want to like design 40,000 pounds of sleeping bags just to like recycle them. So we ended up going in a different direction and partnering with a really fantastic textile recycler called Unify. If you've ever seen Reprieve recycled polyester, or a shirt that says, there's 6 plastic bottles in this, it's probably Reprieve. It's probably a Unify textile. They're based in North Carolina. And along with bottle recycling, they can take textiles in our sleeping bags into their system, shred it up, melt it down, and extrude it out into Reprieve recycled polyester, staple fibers, or textiles. So in June, we'll be launching our first Endless Promise product. So our new Forte bags are all recyclable. In 2024, we have 2 additional categories that I'm not going to say just yet, but are pushing the frontiers of types of products that can be recycled. And it's been a really big galvanizing force for our team, and a good design project, marketing project, operations project, pretty much every type of project, right? But our goal is for 100% of our products to be recyclable. And every year we're reporting our progress on that in our annual sustainability report.
That's amazing. I'm really excited to see it. I mean, I guess it will be passed, but yeah, I think I have the Forte because I have a Nemo sleeping bag that I use,
Nice.
and it's a wonderful sleeping bag. So it's really cool that it will now have that more like sustainable side to it, because I know that that is often a reason that sometimes people would like gravitate away from synthetics in terms of like insulation and stuff like that. Um, yeah. So when you are developing these products, or your team is developing these products, how do you balance the like focus of outdoor performance and sustainability? It sounds like in some cases you might be addressing sustainability like later on in the product development life. Yeah. So I'm just curious about how that thought process kind of occurs.
It's definitely not easy. I will say that, the performance and sustainability balance is a lot more even than it used to be. But the sustainability pricing balance is still really challenging. And, more often than not, when we're creating new products and having to make those decisions, the performance is there. Especially for textiles like Osmo, that we really put through a lot of rigor and actually perform better. But a lot of these sustainable materials just cost more, right? And then you're having to make decisions of, I can have this fantastic product that is a Blue Sign product and is 100% recycled and is PFAS free and is fair trade XYZ, but each one of those attributes has a cost to it, right? So I think that's more of the balance challenge. I'd say that performance is always the driver, because like, why make a product if it's not going to do the job? Like, why waste those resources to not have the best product you possibly can? But I think that, we'll never sacrifice quality basically for anything, is the goal. But that pricing, and, not only like thinking about your product margin, like how much of this are you going to make as a for-profit business off of the sale, right? But what are people willing and able to pay for, right? And I think that's where resale can be really exciting, to get more people outside at a more attainable price point, by building that circular economy and getting products to have a second, third life at a lower entry point is really exciting.
Yeah, that is one deterrent, I think, from buying Nemo equipment for some, like, especially like beginner outdoor people, is kind of the price point. But yeah, it would be really nice to see more of it secondhand and being able to be more accessible, because it is such a high quality and high performing piece of equipment. It would be nice if we could just like have people initially invest in a product that will sustain them for several years during their adventures. Um, awesome. So if you're thinking back to the whole time that Nemo has existed and kind of your time with the company, what do you think that Nemo has done really well and is doing really, really well as a company that other individuals and manufacturers, companies in the outdoor industry can learn from?
Yeah, I mentioned it before, but I think just that willingness to collaborate is just so key. And part of it might just be like the way I am as a person too. I just have like no patience for like puffing feathers, like BS within the industry or just within business, right? Like I feel like we all have bigger fish to fry from an environmental and social perspective. And there's targets that we're all working towards that are pre-competitive and that we'll get there faster if we work together. So Nemo is involved in a lot of different industry groups. And one I want to call out is the Outdoor Industry Association Climate Action Corps, which is a group of over 100 brands in the industry that have committed to annually measuring their greenhouse gas footprints, to setting reduction targets, and to reporting their progress on those targets. And I love to see there's like an online community where people are asking each other questions. I'm always up to talk to folks that are earlier or farther along on their journey, et cetera. There's like basically there's a very long sustainability group chat out in the world that we're all just like, hey, how are you working on this problem together? At the end of the day, I feel like we're all just people that love to spend time outside and recognize that that's at stake from both like a people perspective and a planet perspective. So I think Nemo does that really well. I think it's also a perk of being a small privately owned company that we can just kind of like make decisions that are best for our brand and the communities we serve, right? So I think, I was going to say that I really recommend that everyone, not just people that work in the industry, but anyone who likes to spend time outside, to take part in the Outdoorist Oath. So it's a free workshop that's put on by some really fantastic leaders in the outdoor advocacy and equity space. And I did the workshop last week, and Jose Gonzalez, who is one of the facilitators, spoke about just changing the way that we think about the industry and the way that we work together, and shifting away from sort of these mechanical underpinnings to a more ecosystem way of thinking of just, we're all different, plants in this ecosystem, and we all need to work together in order for it to work. So I'm definitely a big, trying to think more, how can we take care of this thriving river, right, of all of us together. So I think that Nemo does a really good job of being willing to kind of put our neck out on things and get stuff done and move the needle. And we just really come at it from an invitational perspective, both with our brands that we work with within the industry, but also just our participants. I think that the outdoors can be a really intimidating place. You mentioned that it's really expensive to get a kit together of everything you want and need to spend a night outside, right? And it's really intimidating to go do that for the first time. And I think we all just need to remember that and just invite people and include them in all the things that we love to do, and just hold out that hand, both as a business and just as participants, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I will have to check out that workshop as well. It sounds like it was it was awesome. And if you have the link to that, I would love to share it in the show notes as well, so other people can check it out. But with that, how can listeners learn more about Nemo equipment and check out some of your products?
So we have a website, so hip. nemoequipment.com. By the time that this podcast airs, we'll have a really fantastic landing page for Endless Promise. We also already have a landing page all about Osmo to kind of learn more about it and hear from the people that developed it. And we also are on socials. So Instagram is a big one. I think it's at Nemo Equipment. And then for me, my name's Theresa McKenney. Love chatting with fellow outdoorists. I'm on LinkedIn, and love talking sustainability and collaborating together.
Awesome. I'll be sure to share the links to all of those as well. And yeah, I checked out the Osmo fabric page a few weeks ago, and it is very detailed. So if you're someone that likes to learn more about how products are actually made and developed, I would definitely recommend checking it out. But thank you so much, Theresa, for taking the time to be on the show and explain all about Nemo.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. It was great chatting. Come back to New Hampshire. December's kind of a rough time to come, I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, it was.
I'm proud of you.
I'm from Minnesota, so I was like, I got this.
You got this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram at outdoor.minimalist.book, on YouTube, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter at theoutdoorminimalist.com. For even more updates, other educational resources, and to help build an outdoor community with the shared goal to create a better outdoor space as we recreate.